Welcome to our channel, The Awakening of the Christian. Before we begin, take a moment to open your heart, because today's message can completely change the way you see your walk with God. If this message speaks to you, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs encouragement. Each video here is created to awaken what God has already placed within you. Why isn't your prayer working? Many believers pray for change, yet remain stuck in the same patterns, the same emotions, and the same unanswered questions. And the hardest part is that they often think God is silent, when in reality, the silence is revealing something they haven't confronted inside themselves. Prayer is powerful, but prayer without transformation becomes a cycle of repeated words spoken by a heart that never truly moves. Today we go deeper into why so many cry out for a new season, yet keep walking in circles, hoping for breakthroughs that never arrive. Not because God abandoned them, but because something inside them refuses to shift. One of the greatest invisible barriers to change is the fear of losing what feels familiar. Many pray, "Lord, transform my life," while holding tightly to the same habits that suffocate them spiritually. They want a new path, but refuse to leave the old one. They ask for new doors, yet keep standing in front of the same locked entrance, hoping it magically opens. Change demands movement, internal, emotional, spiritual, and movement requires courage. God can prepare the blessing, but He will never force a heart to walk toward it. The question is not whether God is moving, it's whether the believer is willing to move with Him. Another reason people remain trapped is the weight of unresolved wounds. You cannot step into a new future while dragging the chains of old pain. Many Christians pray for new direction, but ignore the emotional healing God keeps trying to lead them into. They want God to accelerate their path, but the heart is still tied to the past. Prayer can open spiritual doors, but healing is what allows a person to walk through them. And healing often requires God to touch the exact places the believer spent years avoiding, pretending, or hiding. This is why breakthrough feels delayed. God is waiting for surrender, not repetition. Some believers remain stuck because they confuse waiting with passivity. They think standing still is faith when, in truth, faith is movement. Faith is obedience. Faith is alignment. Prayer without obedience becomes expectation without foundation. Many ask God to change their circumstances, yet refuse to change their responses, their attitudes, their character. They want a renewed life, but not a renewed mindset. They want doors to open, but they ignore the habits God is calling them to confront. And God, in His wisdom, will never release a blessing that the believer is unprepared to carry. One of the most common traps is praying for change while speaking defeat. Words shape reality. Many believers destroy with their mouth what they build with their prayer. They say, "God, transform my life," and minutes later declare, "Nothing ever works out for me." They pray for breakthrough but confess failure. They ask for peace but feed anxiety with thoughts rooted in fear. Transformation requires agreement between prayer, thought, attitude, and action. When these four are misaligned, even the most sincere prayer becomes tangled in internal contradiction. There are also those who remain trapped because they want God to act, but they avoid the process. Every change requires a journey, and every journey demands discipline. Some pray for strength but avoid responsibility. They ask for direction yet ignore conviction. They want new doors but cling to old excuses. God's process is not punishment, it's preparation. But many Christians resist the shaping, trimming, and refining necessary for maturity. They want results without growth, blessings without stewardship, elevation without humility. And without process, change becomes impossible. Another invisible barrier is the desire for immediate answers. Many believers become discouraged because they assume delay means denial. They pray once or twice and expect transformation to appear overnight. But God often works in layers. He heals what is hidden, restructures what is broken, and rearranges what is misaligned. The problem is that people give up before the process is complete. They abandon the journey halfway. They stop praying the moment things become uncomfortable. But breakthrough comes to those who remain. not those who rush. Some believers cannot change because they pray for external transformation while ignoring internal posture. Prayer is not only speaking, it is aligning the heart with God's truth. You cannot pray for clarity while holding on to confusion. You cannot pray for purpose while resisting God's voice. You cannot pray for change while your heart is still anchored to what God is telling you to release. Transformation begins internally, long before it becomes visible externally. Prayer is the ignition, but surrender is the path. A powerful truth many overlook is that God often responds to prayers by revealing what needs to be confronted. Instead of instant solutions, He shows the believer the habits that sabotage their journey, the relationships that drain their spirit, and the mindsets that keep them stuck. But because the answer does not come wrapped in ease, many assume God didn't respond. In reality, He answered through conviction, direction, and awareness. But awareness requires action. Without action, the prayer remains unfinished. Another invisible wall is the lack of consistency. Many pray passionately for a week and then let their spiritual fire grow cold. They begin strong but fade when results don't appear immediately. But spiritual change requires consistency, daily alignment, daily surrender, daily connection with God. Prayer is not a moment, it is a lifestyle. And without consistency, the heart falls back into old patterns, old fears, and old prisons. God is not withholding the answer. The believer is abandoning the path too soon. In the end, many remain stuck because they pray for change, but resist the transformation that change demands. They want God to rewrite their story without allowing Him to rewrite their heart. They ask for progress but hold on to the past. They want new seasons but stay rooted in old cycles. And God in His love waits, not because He is unwilling, but because He will not force transformation on an unwilling heart. Change is available, breakthrough is prepared, but it requires courage, surrender, consistency, and alignment. So today, let this message awaken something inside you. Don't just pray for change, prepare for it. Align your heart, your thoughts, your habits, and your actions. Let God heal what you've been hiding. Let Him confront what you've been avoiding. Let Him reshape what you've been protecting. The moment you stop resisting and start surrendering, the chains that kept you stuck begin to break, and you will finally walk into the change you've been praying for all along. If this message touched you today, don't stop here. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share this video with someone who needs this truth right now. Come back tomorrow. God still has much to awaken within you. And may your awakening continue until tomorrow.